You're listening to E-Commerce Fastlane, episode 22.
Welcome to E-Commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, launch, grow, and scale a wildly successful e-commerce company. Listen to real conversations with proven practical strategies and success stories. Learn how to generate more traffic, more sales, more profit, and customer lifetime value for your Shopify store. And now, your host and e-commerce entrepreneur, Steve Hutt.
Hey there, it's Steve, and welcome back to the E-Commerce Fastlane podcast. Now, this is your first time listening. This is an e-commerce show where we have honest and transparent conversations about building and thriving online with your store powered by Shopify or Shopify Plus. Now, new episodes are available each week in iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, or you can sign up at ecommercefastlane.com and be notified when new shows are being released. Now, today I'm chatting with Brad Redding, who is the co-founder of Ellavar, and it's an e-commerce analytics platform. It's a really interesting chat we have today because we talk about the fact that a lot of people, unfortunately, have not set up Google Tag Manager. They are not necessarily using the analytics and the KPIs that are important to help grow and scale a brand on Shopify. I mean, a lot of merchants have a cursory knowledge of the KPIs, these key performance indicators that are important to grow. What we say, what you don't track, you can't impact. And that's what we're going to learn on today's show is we're going to learn about Ellavar, the platform, what they're doing really to help Shopify store owners understand their data and then making some actionable insights to help them grow and scale. So Brad, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me, Steve. Happy to, glad to be on.
Oh, great. My pleasure to have you also. I know we've been chit-chatting a little bit through email and some conversations in the past with a few of my merchants and a few clients that I have who are using the Ellavar platform quite happily, I might add. So on a high level, let's share with the audience kind of what does Ellavar do and then kind of what problem does it solve for Shopify store owners?
Yeah. So at a high level, what Ellavar does, we are really trying to tackle the problem of the consistent manual data analysis. If you have a store and you're trying to grow it, really a big part of growing your store is you really need to be data driven, and that can be very hard to keep up with a plethora of data that's coming in. So really, what Ellavar does is Ellavar takes that data, and we really leverage a lot of Google Analytics and the attribution data that comes out of Google Analytics, and automate the analysis and slicing and dicing of that to really turn those into actionable insights that you can take action on. Because every week, every month, your data is changing and evolving. And if you don't have a machine doing that for you, then it's up to you to do that manually.
Tell me a bit about you now and your journey, because I have firsthand knowledge. I've been in the admin. Like I said, I have merchants that are using your platform right now. So I know what it's all about, but let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey kind of so far, kind of leading up to kind of building and launching this platform.
Yeah, it's been a long one. I feel like I've been in e-commerce since I was born, but I started in e-commerce about 13 years ago. Actually had another startup, and this was really in the early days of Shopify. And ironically enough, I was looking at Shopify when I was trying to grow my marketplace that was targeting independent boutiques and independent designers, where we basically had a platform similar to Etsy where anybody could sign up, load up their products. And if you lived in Washington, D.C., you could shop boutiques from New York, Chicago, LA, et cetera. Back then I looked at Shopify as a competitor. Obviously I lost that one, but really that evolved into, I moved into the agency space here in Charleston, South Carolina, where I worked for an agency where we grew pretty quickly in the mid to late 2006, 2007 to really getting into 2013, 14, where Magento, as everyone knows, was taking off, and Magento Enterprise was the place to be. And we saw a lot of growth there. And really that led to the birth of Ellavar as we got into 2014, 2015, where again, there was just more data and more accessibility to data. I think is really the big thing that changed this is when we got to managing roadmaps for clients that, again, we're in a similar space that I'm seeing with a lot of Shopify store owners is how do we go from 5 to 10 million, 10 million to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 150? And back then, 3 or 4 years ago, taking data out from analytics and especially other disparate data sources, there weren't as many tools available then. So it was a very manual process. And when the manual process of pulling data was competing against the bugs and new features, when you're looking at a roadmap, it was always last. So we always wanted to be data driven and really push conversion optimization on site. But it was very hard to keep it up consistently just because it was expensive, both in time and also dollars. Right. So Ellavar really was born out of that. Is there's got to be an easy way, since a lot of these reports that we're pulling are the same insights that we're looking for across multiple clients. And we built a prototype about 2 years ago to test it out, and we're pulling a bunch of data, running it through some pass-fail algorithms to see what stands out, and really that's led us to where we are today.
Very cool. And I do love part of the platform where it uses, proper kind of natural language to identify maybe some challenges or weaknesses or some areas of opportunity based on some key areas that need to be improved on. And I've found with some of my merchants and clients that are using the solution that they were pleasantly surprised at some of the things that they've been running for years, haven't fixed and haven't been tracking, and now they're actively involved with trying to improve a certain few metrics, and all because you have proper natural language with recommendations in there that need to be fixed or implemented. And I think that's really a really great feature of Ellavar. So let's talk about the data-driven part of it, because I think it's a buzzword that's going on, big data and data-driven. And are there any challenges that you see, maybe because you obviously deal with lots of Shopify store owners, do you see any challenges about kind of getting involved in that data-driven mindset?
Yes. Really, the two big ones that bubble up to the top are data quality and trusting the data. If you're a store owner listening to this and you have Facebook set up, Facebook pixels and the Google Search Console, I'm sure you know this pain when you get these emails saying, "Hey, you this is broken," or "This URL is not working," and it somewhat turns you into a little bit of a panic mode, because I get lots of those emails. And I think that there's so much more data and so many more sources of data that it's when all you're being told is what's wrong, it makes it very hard to trust that data. And really, instead of making decisions on the business and on-site optimization opportunities, you fall back to be a little bit more on the gut and what's worked in the past. And that's a challenge, which is normal. It's very normal and common. But not only with just the third-party pixel tracking and third-party sources, when you get into the meat and bones of Google Analytics, it's a deep dark hole for those that have been in Google Analytics. And there's so many different ways to slice and dice data. Shopify makes it very easy. If I'm just comparing Shopify versus Magento, to get Google Analytics set up with enhanced e-commerce and comparing to Magento or others, it's night and day. It really is amazing how easy they make it. But really, when you start adding other services and you start customizing your store and customizing your theme, there might be areas or opportunities where the quality isn't where it needs to be. And so when you're looking at a report and your eyes hone in on your revenue or traffic is off by X%, that just degrades trust in the next month or next quarter when you're reviewing data or reports from third-party tools like analytics that aren't necessarily the financial source of truth. So those are two, I would say, the bigger challenges that I see. That falls a little bit in line with data alignment as well. This is another common problem that I feel like I sleep this 24 hours a day. It's why doesn't my data match up between Google AdWords and Google Analytics and Shopify? Right. Again, very normal question. Very, very easy to get confused if you're not dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. A lot of it comes down to different platforms they measure conversions, revenue, traffic, or attribution in a different manner. Right. And so when you're setting up AdWords conversions, they have a built-in attribution model. So whether it's first click, last click, linear, things like that, versus if you're just looking at a report from Google Analytics in your source medium, that's just going to be your last non-direct click. And then when you look at Shopify, again, Shopify is really your financial source of truth when it comes to sales and orders. If they don't match 100%, don't feel bad. You are in the 100% or the 98% that It's just they're never going to be matching 100% across all three, and it's because they're measuring and reporting in different manner for a different reason. So that can cause some frustration with just your overall data analytics platform, and you just throw your hands up in the air and say, I need someone to fix this because I can't figure it out, and I don't know why AdWords and analytics doesn't match up. And again, it's a common challenge that we see.
Yeah, and I get quite a few calls and messages from clients about that sort of issue too. About why are they different, and what is the single source of truth, and if they are different. And then I have some documents and things that I share with my clients talking about the fact that you're right, the attribution is different, and then how each platform uniquely tracks these sessions and conversions, and so there can be some differences. I guess at some point you have to kind of start making some decisions about, well, what truly is a single source of truth for that, and then if long as they're within a certain range, then you just have to kind of accept the fact that they're never going to be 100% fully aligned, and but you can still, there's still some actionable insights that can be taken out of the data, and that can impact the bottom line.
It comes down to using those tools or services for what they're really meant to use for. And again, and Google Analytics is really, it's a great demand reporting. So it's going to give you demand metrics. The not enough time to dive in across all three is certainly a challenge that we empathize with.
I'm just trying to think the best question to ask or how to ask this, but you obviously have seen a lot of successful Shopify store owners. What do they do to kind of mitigate a lot of these issues?
Have a process. So certainly you have a process in place for quality. So you're just QAing your data sources. So it's not a process where an email comes in and it's that's being forwarded to 10 people to try to figure out what's going on. So really it's building that process of, okay, here's what AdWords, here's how we're using AdWords, here's how we're using the reporting from AdWords, here's how we're using analytics, here's how we're using Shopify, Facebook, etc. And really, at the end of the day, is understand what data is the most important to your business today, for this year, for this quarter, and focus on what you can control versus, again, the thousands of different emails that may come in, and don't let those take over your day to day. So it's having a process in place for whether it's internally, have an expert in house that it's their job to create that process and have checks in place. Or you pull an expert, so somebody that lives in the different tools and knows what to look out for, knows the nuances of the different reporting that may cause some of the discrepancies. And ultimately, they're the ones that you're going to go to and ask, is this data in this report accurate? So if you're relying on reports to drive marketing decisions or on-site optimization decisions, somebody needs to be accountable for that quality. And so you, as a business owner, you can focus on marketing, sales, strategy, product, and not have to worry about what the different emails are coming in about data quality. So that's a big one. Having a process is the first one. Another one is what I mentioned earlier about some of the challenges is just understanding attribution at a very basic foundational level. Everyone knows that at the time of somebody seeing an ad, clicking into the store, buying on that same visit is definitely in the minority. If you're in the 2 to 4 touch points to ultimately convert somebody, I think that's you're doing very well today. But what that means is when you are driving people back to the store through maybe acquiring them through paid search, and then capturing their email, and then dripping them through nurturing campaigns, and then they see a display campaign or remarketing through Facebook. There's 3 or 4 different touch points already. Each of them does require a bit of attribution or credit, so to speak, to the sale, but not that you need to understand the math behind it, but just understand when you're digesting reports that there isn't the last click. The day of the last click driving the business is very hard to fall back on, because you might lose out on, and you likely will lose out on some of the upper or top of the funnel prospecting channels.
Right.
Other than that, I mean, those are two. Again, having a process, understanding attribution, and that's going to allow you as a business owner to understand what levers to pull. So whether it's pulling a lever and driving more traffic because you see a channel that is driving more assisted or top of the funnel conversions versus a channel that may be underperforming, that you're trying to use as that converter for somebody that really gets to be that last touch point before they complete their purchase. And once you have those, you have that, again, the basic process and foundation and understanding how attribution works with marketing and scaling. It's really just, it's prioritization. You can't do everything at once. So if your marketing analytics aren't in a place where you trust them, then work on focusing and getting those accurate and reporting properly, and then move on to your on-site analytics, and then maybe your post-purchase analytics. Ultimately, they're going to feed back into your marketing. So if nothing is working right now, then start in one area first versus trying to tackle everything at once. And that way you see some progress as you grow along.
Right. So let's jump into some marketing tactics. So how have you seen businesses kind of scale like successfully on Shopify?
There's two channels that, for those that may have heard of Avinash.
Kaushik?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's I call him the godfather of analytics. Uh-huh. And I mean, I really believe in this, what he thinks with organic and paid. If your business, if an e-commerce business is not set on a foundation of organic and paid search traffic, and you're really always going to be fighting from behind. As Shopify and Shopify has made it so easy to get a store up and running quickly that there's just so much more competition coming in. So that means there's more marketing dollars that are being pumped into Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter and Google and all these other channels out there. That really to have that true scale is having that true solid organic presence, where once you have that in place, it's free traffic, especially when it's generic and not non-branded keywords or non-branded terms. Right. And that's always going to be, that'll always be there consistently as long as you keep up with the site. And again, Shopify does a great job in terms of on-site SEO. But then the other one is paid search. Paid search, if you do it right, you can scale quickly, because really you don't. The businesses that I've seen scale very, very quickly, they've gotten the attribution down. They've gotten their marketing analytics and the foundation in place, and they understand their floor and their ceiling in terms of cost per acquisition, and really what they need to continue to grow their budget. And it's all through paid. And they've taken that paid search, scaled that. They've really focused on refining campaigns and getting highly targeted and having the right type of messaging. But really, it's the foundation to really scale successfully. I've seen is they do a great job with organic, and I would consider experts, or the top 10 to 20% in terms of paid search competence. So that's one that, again, that really bubbles up to the top and aligns with what I see in the industry as well. A few other that are maybe not the norm is, ironically enough, when I look at just all the clients that we work with, and I just bucket out clients that have paid search expertise, or who's managing their paid search campaigns. Are they in-house or are they external? Those that have paid search in-house, the data tells me that they outperform those that are using external, whether it's consultants or contractors or others to manage paid search. And that one's pretty interesting. And I think I can, if you're using it, again, not an agency that's what their specialty is, but if you're using just a consultant, then again, it's the data shows that the in-house folks that are really looking at their paid search and acting and making tweaks on a daily basis, they're really outperforming in terms of scale and growth.
Yeah, and to add to that, I was part of an agency for 3.5 years prior to this podcast, and what's one thing that I did notice is that there's a certain amount of budget, which is then translated to hours of work towards a project. And, there's times when, a week or more would go by and you're not looking because you're managing a book of business. And whereas I could see how an in-house at some point when you get to that level, usually you start off that way as a startup, you kind of do it all yourself. And then you get a dedicated person or team involved. And I could see at some point, maybe, if you really wanted to hone in, there are quite a few technology partners out there that have, I guess, the insights to be able to execute daily on paid acquisition models. So I hear you.
Yep. Yeah. And I agree. And just a couple other things that I see, again, stores that have scaled is optimize your site. So if you could drive all the traffic you want to the site, but if it's not optimized, then you're just throwing money away. Right. And there's a lot of different ways that'd be its own podcast on its own in terms of on-site optimization, but really having a handle on how to execute that. And video, it's everyone's seeing it. Video and UGC they're a must. I mean, we see testing all the time, and they went out. And so that's another, I'd say, more of that long tail of, if you can get your product catalog. Obviously, Zappos really pioneered this several years ago with video on product pages, and you see Amazon starting to do it now as well. But I think that's another one of those. And that inherently will help your organic traffic as well. If you have solid videos, you're going to build some of that non-branded keyword content. So those are definitely some great tactics, and there's a lot more that goes into on-site optimization. But I think it's really, those are the qualities that I see that have really helped some businesses scale and grow quickly.
I'd add to that too. I'm in a unique position too, like you, where I have quite a few conversations every day with clients, and the big topic that comes up is obviously organic reach through SEO, and it's obviously getting more and more competitive. And that's one of the things that I like to do with the merchant kind of right at the beginning is I'd like to run an SEO audit and just really understand kind of, where are you today in relation to your competitors in the same space based on your keyword pool that you're using, and where do you track, like where do you rank based on, your head terms and then some long tail kind of semantic related kind of keywords. And from that point, it's very interesting, some of the low hanging fruit just from an on-page technical perspective that can be identified from an SEO. As great as Shopify is, you'd be surprised the number of 404 errors, redirects that are not correct, metadata that's not set correctly. It's just people not having a correct strategy of, hey, I want to rank organically, but they're not willing to do all the appropriate steps. And I think having a proper SEO audit, and there are some free tools online that I'm sure you could search for. There's some more enterprise ones that go in depth, which is more what I do. But at the end of the day, it's just like there's certain things that you need to do technically to have a nice, fresh, it's almost like analytics and Google Tag Manager. It's like, it makes sense to go in there and set the framework, as you mentioned, like, right from the beginning. And it's like super, super, super important to, have that framework and get things organized. And I think I always start with SEO because it's a very long-term strategy versus the paid acquisition, which is more instant. But you get it, you do it, you implement these changes, and then as long as you're rank tracking an important keywords and a group of keywords in whatever niche you're in, as long as you're seeing a trend, then that's things that you can start working on from a content hub perspective. There's things that you can be working on. So I'm totally with you on that. So let's talk about some issues, because obviously you're talking about, things about the, here's some of the tactics that you can do to scale, but are there any issues that you see that kind of maybe small or mid-size e-commerce businesses are experiencing right now?
Yeah. And I look at it more as just as growing pains. I mean, we're feeling them ourselves with Ellavar. And I think some of the issues that we're seeing that's fairly consistent across is not necessarily adhering to full brand standards. So it was, again, there's a plethora of tools and services and gimmicks out there to try to trick people into converting, to drive that conversion rate lever. Sometimes that can degrade your brand. In the same lines where you think about sales, and once you go down the sale and the free shipping space, you can't go back. I use bonobos as an example that I've written about in some of our articles. I love bonobos. Is great. I have a lot of great clothes from bonobos. But I'll never pay full price because I was trained very early that they were always on Living Social and Groupon back in the day. And then it was $20 off or 20% off new customers. And every time I go back to the site, it was always sale, promo, sign up, get a discount code. And they use that to grow their new subscribers and new users, which made sense. But it really trained me as a user as I'll never pay full price. So whether that's obviously they've been very, very successful at what they've done. But I think when you look at that same mentality on a smaller scale, when you're in the very, very early days, depending on what domain or niche you might be in, really think about that is think about what are your brand standards and how does that going to apply across all of your marketing channels. That just takes time. It takes time and discipline to understand that, especially if this is a new endeavor and you're at the couple million mark and trying to figure out how to get to 10. Some of the other issues, which I think they're just common for every business, not necessarily just e-commerce, but really testing everything. So when you're making changes on your site, the intent of making changes is you always think that it's going to improve, whether it's improving average order value through cross sells, bundles, et cetera, or improving conversion rate. But there's many circumstances where implementing those changes will actually have the opposite effect, where they're going to hurt the business, and you just don't know that. So really getting into that process of maybe not every single little thing or change that you're making to the site, but test some of the bigger changes, because what issues and a lot of clients that will come to us initially and trying to look for the silver bullet of why are they stagnant or behind their goal for the year. It was, oh man, you're right. I made all these changes on a product page back in April, but we weren't really looking to see how our product page funnel was performing. So when people actually were getting the product page and trying to add a cart, then they're 3 or 4 months behind and trying to play catch up. So that type of scenario can be prevented if you're A/B testing or split testing. If you're not on one of the bigger dynamic A/B testing platforms, you can do it yourself. Google Optimize is free. It's super easy to set up. We have an article on how to set it up. It takes a minute or two, but that really can validate your gut or your team's gut on, hey, we need to make this change on our collection pages or product pages. So that's an issue, and usually it's just, hey, let's just make the change. I know it's going to win. I know it's going to improve things, and many times it doesn't. Shopify, again, with Shopify making it so easy, and I've lived in Magento world for 6 or 7 years, and flipping over to Shopify, almost I feel like I'm in Shopify full time now. It really just makes everything easy, and the partners make everything easy, and the understanding how all these pieces and all the technology and evolving data connects together, and how to scale your marketing spend when you don't have a huge runway to make mistakes. It's hard, and that inherently will cause some plateauing. And that's where even in your very early days, when you're starting to do some heavy prospecting on social or paid searches, really understand your data, understand your metrics. Are you going to measure this campaign based on cost per click or click-through rate, just to understand the intent of users and reacting to your ads on those marketing platforms? Or are you really going to focus on, hey, if I'm spending $1, I need to be making $3 on this campaign? Those really have two different roads to go down. So it's really just understanding, when you are starting to scale the marketing, is how are you going to measure, how are you going to evaluate, and how are you going to hold yourself or the business accountable for that spend, and again, trying to get that hockey stick growth.
Right. So let's say I have a growing store, and for the listeners, how do they extract insights from analytics, their tools, or directly through analytics? Just basically, kind of, where do people start?
A lot of different places today. Google Analytics is everyone really starts there, and Google Analytics, that's I think it over the years it'd get a bad rap saying it's only good for understanding where traffic's coming from, and it doesn't really help you understand behavior. I think that could be just from a lack of understanding or utilizing Google Analytics to its full potential. Right. Big data, everyone has been hearing about big data, that word, and AI and machine learning and everything that always, again, we're in that space obviously, but really, if you aren't applying any actionable insights from your data, and what I mean by that is you're evaluating Google Analytics, you extract some sort of insight. So you say, hey, this product page or this landing page from this campaign is really a poor performer. Let's go test something or change where we're sending users from that campaign and send them to a different landing page. If you're not taking data and putting it into action in your marketing or on-site optimization strategies, and trying to go to jumping into relying on AI and machine learning and all these new technologies to run your business, it's going to be very hard to do that, because it's like you're born, you're starting to crawl, and then all of a sudden you're Usain Bolt and you're breaking world records.
Yeah.
So I think it really comes down to if you're trying to extract insights from your analytics tools and Shopify, it's really just pick out some key metrics or KPIs that are important. So the common levers, if you're trying to grow revenue, which everyone's trying to do, it's you need to pull the sessions, so you're going to drive more traffic or increase average order value or increase conversion rate. Those three variables are going to increase revenue. Now, obviously, with the advent of subscription businesses over the last few years, there's a fourth variable in there is the recurring revenue. So it's if you are in that subscription space, it's really understanding that your cost per acquisition and your customer lifetime value, your potential customer lifetime value. So you can take that data and apply it back to your marketing spend. And that's really getting into nitty gritty of 4 or 5 or 6 key metrics or KPIs that you really want to focus on improving and stick to those and don't try to conquer everything at once and improve. You can't improve sessions and AOV and conversion rate and subscriptions all at the same time. Pick one to start with and start optimizing from there.
Right.
Some other ways that I see businesses that are pulling out insights from analytics tools is there's services out there that can automate some of the insights. Even Google Analytics itself, they have the analytics intelligence, I think they call it, they start to pull out. You might see those in your dashboard where they're starting to showcase forecasting trends. And obviously this is the space that we play in is you click a button and then you're getting a lot of insights and pass-fail quantified of if you move this lever X, you could grow another $10,000 to $20,000, $30,000. But really it's again, just pick a few KPIs and spend some time in Google Analytics or other tools that offer some additional automation or insights analysis on top. And again, just put a few tests to action.
Right. No, I totally agree with you on that. This conversations of A/B testing come up quite a bit, and it's training that I do with a lot of my merchants. Is that they know they need to make some changes. They make some changes, but they haven't documented what they've changed and how it relates to the data itself. So they tend to do it only by gut and or, as you said, adding on some AI or machine learning type merchandising tools and just automatically think that conversion rate's going to go up or lifetime value is going to go up because you're investing in some tool that potentially could be taking a slice of the revenue based on the success of their widgets showing things. It's an interesting business model, but it's not necessarily the answer to put everything on external tools. You really, as a store owner, you really do need to take time to learn some of the most important KPIs for your particular business, and then slowly tracking these, making some A/B tests on them. I love the idea of Google Optimize. I think I'm going to make sure that goes in the show notes because people always wonder, okay, it's expensive to get involved in other different types of tools where you can use Google Optimize to make some quick changes to a site and test and document that. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and modeling out your growth goals. So if you're trying to go from 3 million to 7 million, where's that coming from? Where's that growth coming from?
Right, exactly.
So
we're nearing the end of the show, and do you have any kind of closing comments that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Yeah, I think I've talked to a lot of Shopify owners and work with a lot of Shopify owners on a day-to-day basis, and honestly, it's really amazing to see awesome brands that are growing and really growing out of nowhere within the last year, 2 years, 3 years. And I think the one thing that we've talked a lot about today is data from different sources and all these tools. And data doesn't need to be overwhelming. You don't always need to be staring at just charts and numbers and graphs. Understanding data in more of a human language of, okay, I have a lot of data, but how do I put that to use? That's really, I think that's the beauty of data, because there's a ton of data, and whether you use a tool or a service or somebody internally to translate that data, it's again start taking action, not just on graphs and allowing the eye of the interpreter to determine the best course of action. It's just translating those into tangible insights that everyone on your team can understand and benefit from. Other things, again, we've talked so much about attribution and tagging and everything that goes along with KPI tracking. Is don't try to tackle everything at once. So starting small, building up your proper data tracking, building up your optimization program, ultimately just building trust. So building trust into your data, your system, your process, that really is going to help build successful habits. So when you do start testing and you do start scaling your testing, that it's addicting. So when you launch your first few tests and you see some winners and you see the lift in revenue per visitor or conversion rate, you want to start testing everything. And that's I love it.
Yeah.
I'm even getting heightened here talking about it, but that's really when you see that tangible change in your business, that all comes from, again, a solid foundation and a process in place. And then just building those habits of testing everything or as much as you can. But yeah, I think it's been really great talking with you, Steve. And I know there's a lot of great listeners out there that I'd love to learn from as well.
Yeah, that's one fortunate thing about being a host of the show is I have a great opportunity to meet lots of people, and everybody is kind of in a different maturity level as far as their business growth and kind of where they're at. And I just, I'm fortunate to be able to interview you today. And I know many merchants and clients are successfully implemented your platform, which I think we should share that with the listeners. So how can people learn more about Ellavar and that platform?
You can check out www.getellavar.com. There's two areas of Ellavar that we can help Shopify, and we help Shopify owners on a daily basis. One, we have an app, which is if you go to the App Store and search Google Tag Manager, you'll see our Ellavar app, and our purple and blue will hopefully stand out as our brand color. We were talking about branding earlier. But that tool is really meant to remove the headache and the pulling out of hair of how do I set up Google Tag Manager? How do I implement the data layer for GTM? How do I automate all my dynamic remarketing tags? That's the app that we have available in the store that, again, make that happen with a click of a button. Mm-hmm. And then we have our software that we talked about that automates the data analysis. And really what we're doing is we're hooking into a couple of your data sources and extracting insights out of that and quantifying it. So if you have 3 different insights that are potentially problematic, we're telling you if you get them back to even or zero based on industry benchmarks, one might make you another $20,000, but one might lift you another $200,000 within that time period. So we're helping quantify your decision making even more versus just telling you what's going well or what's not going well.
Right.
And you can find out about both of those products on our website.
Very cool. I do have, we talked offline before we recorded, and you've been very gracious to offer an extended trial for, the listeners that of the show today. Instead of being a 14-day trial, you're offering a 30-day trial. You're also offering a kind of a free personalized setup of Google Tag Manager that really, along with, the Shopify GTM app. So it's nice that you're being so generous to put that all together, and it really sets a great foundation for at least getting that part of your store set up. And then the next part is having a look at the Ellavar solution, having it connected to your data points, as you say, and then actually see once it crawls the site and understands the data and goes, okay, here's what we're recommending to do based on the data of your particular store.
We look forward to anyone that wants to come and give the software a try. Again, like Steve said, 30 days with our app. Again, even with an app, we're trying to make it really easy to implement, but we'll even take that extra step of implementing it for you and walking you through how it works and really making sure that, again, your data foundation is a safe place, and you can start acting on some of that moving forward and your optimization strategies.
Perfect. I'll make sure I update the show notes for that. It'll be also at a link, ecommercefastlane.com /Ellavar. It's Elevar. And so I'll have that link. It'll link to a landing page that you can sign up for that trial, get this Google Tag Manager installed, and you can deal with Brad and his team over at Ellavar. And well, Brad, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was timely. It's needed. I think there's a lot of challenges in the market right now about people just not understanding their data and, taking some insights out of it. I think they're overwhelmed by logging into analytics. They know it's important, but they don't really have natural language to say, here's the things that I should be working on. And you're making it very seamless for people to, make an impact on their brand. And I do massively appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve. This was great. I'm getting ready to go start some tests, so I'm ready to go testing.
Beautiful. All right. Well, have yourself an awesome day. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, that's it for this episode. I highly recommend you head on over to getellavar.com. That's GETELEVAR, getellavar.com, and sign up for the free 30-day trial of this platform. And as a bonus, they're going to install and or update your Google Tag Manager on your Shopify store. It's an app they have in the App Store. It usually is a one-off price of $100, but because you're a listener of the show, Brad's been so generous to offer that for free. So just go to getellavar.com and they'll get you all taken care of. Now, after this implementation is done, you can then be like 100% confident kind of in the data that's being generated in analytics. And, if you want to take it one step further, the Ellavar platform can then help you set some important KPIs, some goals, and then in layman's terms, share with you exactly what you need to do in order to improve the performance of your brand. It's all about like setting goals and then letting the solution kind of share the insights to help you improve the performance. So go check them out. I have firsthand knowledge that the platform is solid and the recommendations they generate. And finally, I'd like to thank you, my loyal listeners of the show. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive kind of insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, really with my personal goal to help you grow and scale with Shopify. Thanks for carving out some time today and listening to the show. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of your week and keep thriving with Shopify.